Let's talk about Nano Zeolite versus ZeoCharge, right? So there's a number of different classifications of zeolite products. You've got basically the powders, you've got the liquids, and then now you have the nanos. And originally it was all powdered, right? So all powdered zeolite. And then you had the liquid zeolite industry appear where they started taking just the powdered supplements and mixing it with water and referring to it as a liquid zeolite. It was just straight zeolite mixed with water. And that's done basically for marketing purposes because the liquids sell a lot better, and because people didn't understand at that point the importance of getting a high enough dose of zeolite. Because back then and still now, a lot of people think that lower doses are gentler and you want to start with those. But what we've kind of proven, and the theory I've developed, is that higher doses are gentler than low doses. So that's why you would never want a liquid. But that wasn't understood at that point. So that was the liquids. Now, after that came the nano zeolites, which are kind of a separate class. And some of the liquids, a lot of them market themselves as nano, but generally they're not. Generally, they're the same, just the powders, and it just has a lot of marketing claims that can't be substantiated. But the true nano zeolites actually do have zeolite particles that are in the nano range. So they're much smaller than the powders generally. And the idea is, one, just to be able to offer a full body detox. And they claim that the powders are not able to do so because they're too larger particle sizes. And then, so let's just address that right away. So what I would say to that is ZeoCharge, we have the case studies and a number of videos on the education page that show that ZeoCharge is able to offer a full body detox. So that kind of debunks that immediately. Not maybe some of the other powders can't do it, but ZeoCharge, which is kind of it has a range of particle sizes, right? So we don't have anything in the super, like less than 100 nanometers, because that's what a lot of the nanos are, is they're super tiny. And we don't really want them to be that small because most of the toxic elements are larger than that. So that's one of the problems with the nano, is that you have these, sometimes they're like 2 or 3 or claiming to be like 2 nanometers. And you have these toxic elements that are 100 or 1,000 times that large, and they're just not going to fit into the zeolite cage. Now, what zeolite can do, it can absorb the toxic elements into the cage, which is the most efficient way to remove them from the body, but it can also adsorb them or attach them to its surface. So that's where I think one of the reasons the liquids and the nanos the nanos in particular, can cause a lot of detox reactions, is because they're a very inefficient detox, because they'll attach to some of these toxic elements, but then they'll drop them because they're not securely fastened in the cage. They're attached to the surface. So a little bit different. ZeoCharge has a whole range. It's still sub 1 micron, so it's very small. But then there's some that are larger as well. So it's kind of a combination. It's just, there's so many toxic elements in our bodies, we don't even really know exactly what's in there. So we wanted a range of particle sizes to be able to ensure the most comprehensive detox available. And we can still prove that it's offering a full body detox. So another thing with the liquids is that, and we're going to talk about dose because that's really the most important thing, but the liquids will say, well, you need it to be super small because it's going to be able to, cross into the blood and go to the brain or whatever it's going to do. And you have to understand that it doesn't magically just appear in those areas in the body. It has to go through the digestive process, right? So the zeolite spray, you take the nano spray, and it's going to, you swallow it, and then it's going to go through your esophagus, into your stomach, and then it's going to go into your small intestine, and that's where it absorbs through the intestinal lining into the bloodstream. So, and if it's a large particle size that won't fit through the lining, that's where it'll move on to the large intestine and continue through the digestive process, not the body. But in order for a nano zeolite to make it to the bloodstream, it would have to go through the entire digestive process without encountering any toxic elements, and then be able to absorb through the bloodstream. So you can see that that's just not going to happen. Now, that's why the dose can be more important than the particle size, because what you want is to have a large enough dose to have, I call them like zeolite soldiers, a zeolite army, to have enough soldiers that go and they're fighting all the way through the body, and they're encountering these toxic elements through digestion, which tons of them are going to be there. And then there's leftover zeolite particles for the rest to continue. So there's just extra. So that's kind of the issue. So with the liquids, talking about dose and the nanos, you have generally 300 micrograms per serving. That's what most of the nano zeolites are, 300 micrograms per serving. A lot of them don't list the dose on the label. or the label can be like in milliliters or something, so you have no idea how much zeolite's in there. But it's generally always going to be less than a milligram. Some of the liquids are like 2-3 milligrams. Some of them are a little larger, but like the nanos are like always less than a milligram per serving generally. So in comparison, ZeoCharge is 5,000 milligrams per scoop, right? And we know that some people that are, especially that are more sensitive, that need the higher dose to avoid the detox reactions, need sometimes starting off 30,000 milligrams or 6 scoops. 30,000 milligrams is 300,000 micrograms. That's exactly 100,000 times the dose of the nano. So you can understand that you just cannot get a high enough dose with the nano for the people that are very sensitive and that need those higher doses. So a lot of people will take the nanos, they're getting the detox reactions, they assume it means it's working. It just really means it's an inefficient detox. It's working against the body, not with it. Those people switch over and they take ZeoCharge, and some of them start with a microdose of ZeoCharge. They just take a sip of it mixed with water and they get the same reactions. But then they take the full glass, whether it's a scoop or 2 or more, and they get no reactions. So it doesn't mean it's working. It just means it's an inefficient detox, and the higher dose is gentler. So that's one thing that really is important to understand. Another thing is that some of the nanos are synthetic, so you really have to be careful of that because that's a whole nother operation. I would always recommend staying away from synthetic zeolites. But even the natural ones, it's just a low dose. So I always say it's about the quality and the quantity. If you can have the best quality product in the world, but if you're not getting that the right dose, you're just going to be limited. So that's where the problem with the nanos is. Great concept, making them super small, but it's just in reality, just trying to get through the digestive tract and actually offering a full body detox. It's just going to be limited because we have so many toxic elements in our bodies. And if you're taking a spray or 2 or 20 or 30, however many sprays you're taking, there's just not going to be enough zeolite to handle everything. And that's kind of the whole premise behind the higher dose theory of zeolite that's on zeolitelabs.com is that you need to have enough available zeolite cages to kind of sop up everything floating around, and then have even more leftovers that are kind of waiting on the sideline for when other toxic elements are dumped into circulation through the detox process, right? Because detox stirs stuff up. It kind of makes a mess. You want to have enough to clean it up. So I'm not saying that the nano zeolites are worthless and no one gets good results, because there's certainly testimonials and they have helped a lot of people. I'm just saying some of the claims that are being made that, the full body detox, it might not ever be offering a full body detox. It might just be offering kind of binding to some of your daily dose toxins, and that could make you feel better. So without testing, tissue level intracellular testing, you're not going to be able to know for sure. But we've done that. So we've got the case studies. So we know ZeoCharge offers a full body detox there. So that's basically what I've got there. We found that just a lot of people that have switched over from the nanos to the ZeoCharge, they're detoxing much faster. They're detoxing much more efficiently, and they're not getting the symptoms because they're able to get a high enough dose. So those are my thoughts on that.